lost all control. Her gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Welcome, everybody, to the Paranormal Portal, Bedtime Stories From Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm actually fixing something as I sit here talking, multitasking, if you can believe it or not. It's true, I can multitask to a degree, and I just fixed the on-screen chat. That's how I roll, ladies and gentlemen. But welcome to the show, and so glad to see all of you guys here coming in, streaming into the door. Lots of wonderfully familiar and friendly faces, which is great. It's always amazing when you guys come in. And I think it's because, I'm just a guy that had an idea to do a show, and so I did a show. And over time, so many of you guys have come and made it your own and made it your home as well. And it's just, I don't know, it's really humbling and amazing to me. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for always, making the show amazing. Just by being here, you're making it amazing. But I hope you guys had a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here. What the hell day is it? No, it's Monday. It's Monday, right? I don't know. It was such a busy day. I was so all over the map. I had so many projects going on today. It was just insane. But it's Monday. I hope your Monday worked out okay, as we're talking about. Doing that thought experiment, trying to make it an amazing day, put it out there, and hopefully it will be. But, I hope you had an amazing Monday. Welcome to the show. The call-in board's always open on the portal. If you've got something that you need to talk about or wish to talk about on the show regarding a paranormal experience you've had, please call in 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. So, absolutely thrilled to hear from you guys when you call in. We've been having some great phone calls lately. I mean, they're always great, don't get me wrong, but I'm just hearing from so many new people, and it's really cool to be able to meet a lot of you guys out there that are, finding the show, and a lot of people I've never met before. So thank you so much for all of you who have called, and thank you to all of you who will call. I don't know if I'm programming you. You will call. No, you might. You just might. But I hope you guys are ready, because it's time for bed. Beth, that's hilarious. I couldn't believe that when I saw that, but it is true. Hey, Duke, good to see you, brother. Thanks for being here and helping to manage the traffic in the chat. I appreciate that. And let's see. I guess we could see who's here so far. I found out last week that we were in the top 50 podcasts in the science category, which is what the Paranormal Portal podcast is classified as, because iTunes doesn't give you a lot of options to work with. So I chose natural science, which was based on what a lot of other shows have chosen as well that are, similar to the portal. But I learned that we were in the top 50 podcasts on iTunes in Australia. But then now I've looked at it at the U.S. charts today, and I found out that, or actually yesterday, I found out that we were in the top 100 in the science category in the U.S. too. But I found out through watching that charts that they're very volatile. So sometimes you'll be, sitting really good, and other times you'll be like right now. I think we're 104 or 111, something like that. But we were down to 69, and then 84, and then 50 something, and then 73 and 79. So it really jumps around. So this is kind of a new thing for me because I'm not used to looking at these. So I didn't know if it's like a weekly or what, but I guess it's updated like really pretty regularly. So your position shifts, and I'm not sure what their metrics are. I assume that it's based upon downloads, but I just thought that was really cool. It's like, wow, the funny thing in the Australian charts was that we beat Bill Nye the Science Guy in the screenshot that I got. However, if it's still just as volatile, that maybe only was a 5-minute standing. Maybe we changed, maybe we went up, and we went down. It's hard to know, but it's just kind of cool that we're really establishing the Portal podcast, and people are noticing. It's just really incredible and absolutely phenomenal. I'm just thrilled about it. So, but let's take a look and see who is here tonight. I would love to get all your names out there. Oh, that's a new one, 104. I never seen somebody named 104 before. So welcome to the show, 104. You're a brand new name to me. I didn't know you could name yourself a number. That's interesting. But anyway, 104 is here. Beastly Bronco is here. Beth Fierce is here. Brown Dwarf is here. Carrie Stauber is here. Hi, Carrie. And she left. She was here for a second. Brown Dwarf is here. How you doing, Brown? Chris Jarvis. How you doing, Chris? Deb Varner. Hello, Deborah. Demos Mars is in here. Hello, Demos. Diane Fowler. Hello, Diane. DJ Big Red 210 is in here as well. Good to see you. Oh, Daniela Agliolo. Sorry, Danielle. I always beat the hell out of your last name. It's hard for my palate to shape. So, DJ Big Red, Donnie C, LM, ELL, as in LE or L. Great to see you guys. Janice Woisen. Good to see you, Janice. Isaac Areola. Good to see you. Christy Sci-Fi. Great to see you, Christy. Christina Potter, Linda, Lewis, Marilena, Mogion. Good to see you guys. Thank you guys for coming in. Rick, a.k.a. Purple Hobbit, is here. Real Deal, Tesla Tech, Truth Hip Hop Consciousness, WeMac, and then The Duke. So thank you guys all for being here. Those are, of course, there are more here, but those are the chatters. Those are the people that are currently chatting. So if I missed your name, it's just because sometimes the participants list on YouTube, it sucks. Sometimes it seems more accurate, but if I missed you, I'm sorry about that. I'll keep watching for new names as they come in. It's an addiction. Well, there's worse vices to have, Moog, so I think that's all right, right? So, I mean, I'm okay with you guys having this addiction, and I hope it spreads like a freaking rash. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it really means the world when you guys are here. So thank you guys so much. So I got a bunch of good stories pulled up for you. Well, at least I hope they're good stories. I haven't read them myself yet, so we'll be reading them together, and hopefully we're all wildly entertained by the conclusion of the show. But unless there's anything I'm missing, I think I got everything going. And so I guess we'll start out. I'll start out the show. DJ. Yeah, All right, so California is first. I'm always California dreaming here in the portal, especially as it gets colder and colder. A lot of things are getting colder lately. It's just not good. But anyway, let's see. Let's go to California and see what the hell's going on there. It says, really? It's like you had a flat tire in my tongue there. Let me take a drink. Sorry, guys. I'm all parched. I vividly remember the day that I had my first paranormal experience. Sorry. I don't know what the hell's going on, man. My body's making all kinds of weird noises. My mom would leave the house at 4 a.m. and because she started work at 5, and I remember that day, and she told me and my sister goodbye, gave us kisses, and turned off the lights as she left. There was no one else at home, and I was around 8 years old, and my sister was 17, and we were sleeping for like 30 minutes. Then all of a sudden there was this loud, rough sound, like someone was trying to open my mom's bedroom. I know this may sound tacky, but my mom would lock her door with a padlock. She didn't trust us. Yeah, that's a little strange. However, the noise we heard was the lock being moved like crazy. I was never more scared in my life. My sister and I both got up and looked at each other in awe with our mouths wide open. I even called out, "Mom, is that you?" My sister got out of bed and I begged her not to. She just looked down the hall and said she saw it moving, but no one was there. There was nothing we could do. I curled myself into a ball with the covers over my head, waiting for morning to come, and the noises continued, and I heard the toilet paper in the bathroom rustling. It sounded as if someone was helping themselves to some toilet paper off of the holder. And the next occurrence was probably a few months after the first one. It was around the same time, at around 4:30 to 5 a.m., and my sister was in Mexico, but this time I was home alone with my drunk dad. Oh, poor kid. I already knew that the ghost would bug me right after my mom left for work, and this time I was prepared. The lights were on, the TV was on, and I even had the front door open. And it was so bad to the point that me and my dad were sleeping almost in the living room. My dad was asleep already peacefully, and I was trying to fall asleep, or I was watching TV, I forgot. But then right in front of the bed, I heard footsteps as if someone was walking right in front of the bed, and I heard the creaking sound and the weight of the footsteps. I blinked and looked right at the front of the bed, but no one was there. Just the noise. I was so scared. I tried waking up my dad, but he said that it was the neighbors walking around, so much for the TV and the lights. But I was not the only one in the family that experienced paranormal activity in that house. My mom said she felt a cold breeze pass right by her when she was cooking home alone, and that occurred when I was like 2 or 3 years old. And the strange thing is that once I became a teenager and my mom remarried, all the paranormal activity and all the energy went away. I really never felt scared again, just depressed. Currently now, at this point in my life, I'm happy to say that I'm not depressed. Sometimes when I go visit my mom at home, where all the occurrences occurred in the past, I feel angry. And I don't know if it's my mom that makes me mad or if it's the energy in the house, but I just leave quickly when that happens. I also remember that the bedroom was always cold. Just thinking of the place makes me sad. And I also wanted to mention that I have another story posted, which is about a dream I had about a girl in the bedroom. Please feel free to ask me any questions. That's pretty crazy, but I guess looks like we already read that other posting that they had. So I don't know, pretty good story. There does seem to be something about that 3 to 4 in the morning window, especially 3 to 4, but 3 to 4 or 5, as long as it's before dawn, whatever's going on in that moment of that, that late transition of the night going into the day, it seems to be a real active time for paranormal activity, at least according to most paranormal researchers. That's when things really seem to jump off. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is about that time, but there's lots of theories, I guess. But there must be something energetically going on at that point in time where maybe it's just easier for the spirits to do the stuff that they do. I don't know. I'm always up at like 3 and 4 in the morning, but not for long, hopefully, or most times I try to get right back to sleep, but I do wake up then. So I'm just seeing Beth saying, "Yes, Chris," like with a lot of exclamation marks. But okay. Good to see everybody, and I see more of you are coming in, so thank you guys for coming in and being a part of the show. Again, the call-in board is open, 720-923-0500. Thank you very much. If you'd like to call in, you got something to share or some idea you want to discuss, by all means, the phones are open. So, okay, so this one is Nevada. I just had some friends move to Nevada. Sounds like they like it there. They live right in Vegas, and they even opened a shop and everything, and it looks like things are going really well for them. So I'm very happy to hear that. That's really cool. They've always been into the real curious things. In fact, Josh was on the show way back when it was still a pretty new show. He was on when I first started doing YouTube. He came on and did an interview, and it's I can't remember the name of the episode. It's so long ago now. I've been doing this for years, but it was a good discussion. He actually had, at one point in time, he had one of the John Wayne Gacy paintings, and he said that there was such a creepy energy to it that he actually ended up selling it. But my God, horrible thing to have. He said it really felt dark, like that painting had just a presence to it. And he had all kinds of other curious things and oddities and stuff. And I think that's the name of his store now in Nevada. I'll have to get that name and drop it in case any of you all are in Nevada. You can stop in and tell them I sent you. I hope their store does brilliantly down there. They're just great people. So, I don't know what the curios and oddities, or oddities and curios, something like that, or curious oddities. Maybe it's curious oddities, but it's in Las Vegas area. But I really wish them all the success in the world. I hope that goes great. So Nevada, let's see what's going on here. It says, "Hello, I'm Norma Jean. Thanks from all of you that have commented on my last story. Now I have another one for you. And I'd say it was 3 months ago that this happened to me, give or take a month. But just to say, my house isn't very old, but I've heard noises in the kitchen, like cupboard shutting or the TV turning on, or sometimes it won't even turn off. The people that owned the house before us turned the garage into a family room, but when we came along, it was turned into a worn-out workout room by day and a bedroom by night for my aunt and uncle who were living with us for a short while. Later, when they moved out, it was turned into my bedroom, and my uncle would say when they would be sleeping in the room, they'd hear things in the kitchen around 2 or 3, and he would joke it was a ghost, but figured it was the house just adjusting. The first nights I slept in my new room, for some reason, I had this feeling of fear. I wasn't sure if it was just me being paranoid or what, but it was such an uncomfortable feeling. I would try to sleep off the feeling, and some nights I would just stay awake, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, and I just couldn't fall asleep when I would start sweating, but the fans would be on, and I couldn't explain this feeling at all. The feeling did go away, but only after the event that took place that I still can't find an explanation for. I was wide awake in my bedroom, just laying down, just playing with my phone, texting my friends, and it was about 1 or 2 a.m., and I don't have a door because the doorway to the room is too big, so I put those Chinese changing things. It's Chinese changing things. It just means those oriental blinds that people change behind, covering the doorway. But being that was there, I can't see the doorway or the kitchen, which is right across. So I was texting, ready to put it down and go to bed, and right when I turned off my light and lay my head down on the pillow, I heard a loud thump. The sound was as if someone threw themselves on the floor. It sounded like it was right on the other side of my Chinese changing thing. Chinese changing thing, that's hilarious. I sat up right away, but I didn't think to switch on the light for a split second. I thought maybe it was my sister playing a joke and trying to scare me, but there was no way it could have been her. And then all of a sudden I heard it crawling really fast and go under my bed. Oh, that's horrible. Ugh. That's just creepy kind of stuff. I had boxes down there filled with pictures, and I heard it hit boxes while still clawing. Well, I flew off the bed and turned on the switch for the other side of my room, and I stood there scared, confused. And I went to get my dad. Somehow at the age of 19, I still go to my daddy when I'm scared. And he got up half asleep and lay on my bed, murmured something, got up and went to his room. Well, a lot of help that was. Once he left, I sat in the middle of my bed with the lights on, and all of a sudden I felt as if the bed was breathing. The way your chest moves as you breathe is the way the bed was moving, and I sat there, eyes wide, waiting to see if it was just my imagination. Surely enough, I knew it wasn't. It did it a couple more times, and then it stopped. Well, I woke up to that morning with my lights still on and me in a weird sitting, sleeping position because I never moved from where I was. I explained it to my best friend and my parents. They say I was dreaming, but I was wide awake and I felt and heard was real. And my friend asked if it was my dog, but my dogs live outside and I don't bring them in. And it wasn't my sister because I heard it crawl under the bed. Was it a rat? No, the thump that I heard sounded like a full-grown human. Well, that afternoon I removed the top of my bed, not knowing exactly what I was searching for. I guess just to check, but I noticed that no boxes were moved, and they were sitting in the order and not moved, yet I heard it hit the boxes. It was no dream. After that, though, I slept as normal as I always had before switching to that room, and no more staying up with a weird feeling. To this day, I try to find sense of it, but I can't find an explanation. Yeah, that's just weird. I don't know. Sometimes there doesn't always have to be logic to some of this stuff, but that is really creepy. That's some creepy stuff right there. How we doing? Anyone new? Anyone new? Old Spirit Art. How you doing? Welcome. Good to see you. And Bob in Germany came in. Good to see you. And Bama, welcome. Good to see you guys. Thanks for coming in. Bell Prepper. Let's see. This one's coming from Ohio, of course, because everything weird happens in Ohio. They really got the market cornered on paranormal stuff, I'll tell you. They got the Grass Man. They got Dog Men. They got lots of weirdness. They got some weird ancient mounds here in Ohio. There's a lot of energy in that state for some reason. Must be something to do with the ley lines or something there. I'm not sure. But let's see what's going on. I read. Are you serious? Oh, okay. So one day, my cousin Mary and I were watching my niece that was only about 6 years old. My parents had gone out for a little while, and they would not be back for about another hour or so. So we were playing a game with my niece, and we were having fun until we heard some sort of laughter coming from the dining room. We took my niece into the living room, and I told Mary to stay there with her, and I went to investigate, but there wasn't anything in the dining room or the bathroom. I went back into the living room, and we decided to watch the television because we didn't want to scare my niece, and I started to get a little cold, so we grabbed some blankets from the computer room, and my niece was already about to cry because she was so frightened from the startling laughter. Then, as we were watching television, I heard something from the other side of the room. My glass of water got knocked down from somewhere or something, and the water spilled all over, and my niece was in tears now. Mary had her in her arms, and I got the glass, and I went to the kitchen to get a rag for the spilled water on our carpet. We turned off the television and stayed on the couch, which was across the room where the water had gotten spilled, and heard something beside me, and I moved closer to Mary and my niece. Before I knew it, my school picture that was hanging on the wall in a new picture frame flew off the wall and landed in front of me. We all screamed, and my niece ran into the love seat. I grabbed the picture frame and put it back on the wall, and I knew it did not fall because it would not have landed so far away from where it was hung. We went into the love seat and got underneath the blankets because we did not want my niece to see anything else that would frighten her. She was already in tears, and I told her to promise not to tell anyone about this because they would not believe us. And finally my parents got home, and my niece would not leave her grandparents alone. But she did keep the secret. That still haunts me to this day, but nothing else like that ever happened for the rest of that day. How about the rest of your life, though, huh? Has it come up again? Let's see. I can check. Yeah, apparently it has, because this same person submitting the story has also submitted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 other stories. So apparently they've experienced quite a bit. That's pretty creepy stuff. I don't know. It just seems random sometimes, right? Like, so there's a presence, and what does it do? It knocks some crap off the wall and spills some water and laughing. And it's like, what's that all about? What's the point? It would be nice to think that there was some purpose to it, like, trying to give you an indication of what's going on in their life. And maybe they are. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't be so critical because I guess maybe it's incredibly hard to, make these things happen. And so I don't know, maybe it's really hard to get any kind of sense into it. But I guess if you move stuff, the one thing you're doing is showing people that you're there, which I think in some haunting cases, I think that's just what the ghost wants. And I don't mean ghost like a disparaging term, but the entity, the spirit, I think it wants to be acknowledged. And I've said this before on the show, but just imagine that all of a sudden nobody in the world can see you and nobody can hear you, and you're all alone. And maybe you see other spirit stuff, maybe you don't, but you see these people walking around you all the time, and they don't acknowledge you. So maybe it kind of makes you crazy. Maybe you go into this sort of madness. I don't know. And if that's the case, that is just really tragic. I can't imagine how terrible that would feel. But that's Ohio for you. There's always strangeness going on in Ohio. It's incredibly strange. Just looking around, not missing nothing. Okay, good. All right, so this one should be good. It's a Guitar Hero story, so it should be good. And it's coming from where? Ohio. Let's see what's going on in Ohio with Guitar Hero. One evening, my cousin was spending the night, and we were getting bored, so we decided to go downstairs to my half-finished basement and play Guitar Hero. As I was in the middle of playing Barracuda, that's a great song, I thought I could feel something touch my shoulder to my left. I thought that was really odd, considering Hannah, my cousin, was sitting on my right. I didn't think anything of it at that moment. Then it started happening again. That tapping on my shoulder started again. Hannah, stop tapping my shoulder. It's getting annoying now, I mentioned to her. I'm not doing anything to you, she exclaimed. And I looked over at her after I paused the song, and she was sitting there messing around with her phone. Something is touching my shoulder, I told her. Well, it's not me. Maybe it's your brothers, she said. And that would make a lot of sense. They like to bug me no matter what I'm doing, which is understandable, considering they're only 6 and 4 years old. We looked behind the couch we were sitting on, and there was no boys. We looked behind the futon, no boys. We looked in all of the rooms downstairs, no boys. So Hannah and I went upstairs to look for them. Are the boys up here? I asked my mom. Yeah, they're on the couch watching Spider-Man, she said. Out in the living room, sure enough, the boys were sitting there watching Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus fight. And we asked them if they'd been downstairs in the last half hour or so, and they told me to shut up because the movie was at a good spot. Hannah and I decided to stay upstairs the rest of the night. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's maybe a good time for Guitar Hero. Or maybe that spirit just didn't like Barracuda. Just saying. Barracuda. All right, let's go to Connecticut. Let's see. Okay, so this is a long one, isn't it? Nah, kind of long. This one's a little longer, so should be entertaining. And if it sucks, it's not my fault, just for the record. This happened at the end of May, a week before our move into upstate New York. The ghost in my new haunted house, instead of finishing school finishing in the middle of June, it finished at the end of May. My mom married this really nice guy named Frank, and he moved in with his daughter, Valerie, who was 17 years old, so our tiny apartment became even more crowded. And that's why my parents bought a huge house in upstate New York. I came back from school relieved that school was over and that I was finally going to have my own room and a lot of space. And I didn't really have any friends here, but I already had a best friend upstate. Her name is Nikki, and she goes to the same school and class as I do because my mom already signed me up for school there, and it's a really small school because there aren't a lot of kids in that neighborhood, and Nikki lives 3 houses from me. I met her when we went to see the house. So there I was sitting on the couch, imagining how great my summer vacation would be, and that's when I found out that my great aunt had passed away. I wasn't really close with my great aunt, but my mom was, and since everyone else is going, I decided I should go too. So driving from Maine to Connecticut, then back to Maine, and then moving to New York was very stressing. It was a really long ride, and I was bored to death. And since we were driving during the the night through forests and fields, it was completely dark. I just kept staring into space while everyone else was sleeping, and then I saw an animal sitting in the middle of the road, and it looked like it was glowing. And as we got closer, I noticed that the animal was a dog, and it looked like a light blue glowing Labrador, and we ran it over. I looked back, but the dog was gone. After 2 minutes after the dog incident, my stepdad pulled over, and I asked him what was wrong, and he said that there's something on the road a minute ago, but now it's gone. And I didn't say anything about the dog for the rest of the ride. But after hours of driving, we were finally in my mom's hometown, and it was small, old suburb in the middle of a field, and we got there at 6 in the morning. I was really tired, and it was a day before the funeral, so Valerie and I slept until 9. I met this girl. She lived next door to my mom's old house, and she was a year younger than me, but she was way more adventurous than me. I'm American, French, Polish, and there's this tradition that when a person dies, the whole family gathers in his or her house on the night before the funeral and prays. So while everyone was at my great-aunt's house, my friend and I decided to take a midnight walk because we needed to get some fresh air. Just as we were passing my aunt's house, I saw that glowing dog in front of us again, and this time it was growling at us. Well, I screamed, "Run!" and started dashing the other way, and my friend just looked at me and said, "Mandy, what are you talking about?" I looked back, and all I could see was a dark road, a light coming from my great aunt's, and my friend staring at me as if to say, "Are you crazy?" I was sure I saw a dog there. My mom walked out of the house and told me to go home and get some sleep, and when I got home, I could see a light on in the living room, which meant Valerie had already came back, and I changed into my pajamas, and Valerie and I headed for the bedroom, and this is a one-story house, and it only had one big bedroom, a living room, and a kitchen, and I couldn't fall asleep. I just kept thinking about the dog I saw today, and I'm pretty sure it was a ghost. It was morning, and we were all getting ready for the funeral, and then my parents went to my great-aunt's house once again, and we walked really slowly to the cemetery, and behind us, we could see everyone else was also heading there. Just as the coffin was being put into the ground, I saw that dog once again, and this time sitting by my feet. But the really weird thing is that I didn't feel scared anymore. I felt really happy, and I don't know why. We moved 3 days after the funeral. Our new house is really cool, but I swear I saw that dog again in our backyard, and I haven't seen it since. Well, thanks for reading my story. I don't know, that is strange. If it's not their dog, what is it? It's hard to say. We're going to Kansas this time, ladies and gentlemen. We don't get a lot of Kansas. We're not often in Kansas anymore, so let's see what's going on there this time. Just looking. Okay, good. I spent the first 18 years of my life living in a small Kansas town, and although there was little reason to stay, it was a great place to grow up, and I have a lot of fond memories of exploring the woods and rivers, and a lot of strange things happened in around that town. But I'll only tell of one for now. This short story is about Burns Ranch. Burns Ranch was located about 5 miles west of town, situated at the base of a gently sloping hill, literally out in the middle of nowhere. A curving gravel road was the only way to get there, and beyond the house, there's the same road petered out into dirty ruts that faded into miles and miles of unused pasture land. Excuse me. The house itself was a 2-story Victorian that had been built around the early 1900s. It was really old, but wonderfully remodeled and a beauty to behold. A smaller, more modern guest house stood behind it, and an ancient barn nearby completed things. All of this had been in the Burns family for generations, handed down from one son to the other until finally Richard Burns inherited it. At the time of this story, Mr. and Mrs. Burns had a newborn baby and a son who was about 4 years younger than me. I was a family friend, and while in my high school years, we would house sit while they were away on business trips and vacations. And This is a great gig for any teenager, and I always jumped at the chance to get away from it all and spend the time alone out there. One summer, they asked me to stay at their place for a few weeks, and the first week, I was to be alone as usual, but the second week, their son Robert was going to be there. Although not much younger than me, they, for some reason, wanted me to keep an eye on him. Well, we got along well enough, so it was all fine with me. I left for the ranch one late afternoon, just as the shadows of the day were starting to bend longer toward the east, and weaving through the curves of that road and over the low water bridges, and I finally crested a hill and made my way down to the last of the bridges, passed through a small forest, and then came out into the wide open spaces of the prairie land, and about 100 yards further down the road was the house. No matter how many times I went out to the ranch, I could never fully get over the creepy feeling that would wash over me the minute the house came into view. It always seemed foreboding and spooky, and the place looked haunted. One corner of the house formed a rotunda in which Robert's room was located on the second floor, and as I neared the house, I could see someone standing in the shadows of his room, holding the curtain back and watching me arrive. Pulling into the driveway, I saw the curtain fall back into place, swinging slightly. It seemed that someone was home, and I wouldn't be alone that first week after all. The driveway led around the house to the back door, which everyone used when entering or exiting the house, and the only time I ever saw the front door used was after dinners and when we would go out and sit on the porch and watch the sunset. I locked up the car and went through the gate of the fenced-in yard and knocked on the door, waiting for whoever was inside to answer, but when no one did, I went across the yard past the 3-foot statue of the Virgin Mary and towards what amounted to a cement room that had been built on into the side of the hill. It was some sort of a storm shelter, and near the door, I found the keys to the house, which are always hidden there behind an old painting. As I let myself into the foyer and sat in my bags on the bench, I kept calling out to let the presence be known. Dead silence was my only welcome. On the right side of the entrance were the stairs that led up to the bedrooms, and under the stairs and next to the bench upon which my bag sat was the door that led to the basement. Beyond that door and in front of me was the dining room, the kitchen being on its left, and to the right of the dining room were the rest of the downstairs, a few sitting rooms, the library, and an entertainment room. Sure, I saw somebody at the window. I began to search the house, searching with the first floor before working my way upstairs, and the stairs ascended to an L-shaped hall, and just to the left were the master bedroom and bath, and to the right and down the hall past another bathroom were the baby room and the spiral staircase that led to one of the sitting rooms below. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Beastly Bronco. That's awesome. Thank you, brother. That means the world. That's awesome. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Wow. Where was I? Sitting rooms below. The guest room I used, as well as Robert's bedroom, was around the corner. And at the end of the L, I searched these rooms and then went down into the basement, which had been renovated into a modern living room complete with bar. But I found nothing. Perplexed, but still kind of used to how weird the house could be, I went back upstairs to unpack and start to enjoy my stay. I set up my guitar and amp in the entertainment room where I planned on creating rock songs, and I was sure millions would jam to it in years to come. The fridge was stocked so that was no problem, and I had brought along a ton of movies to watch on the VCR in the basement. It seemed the only thing I had to worry about was the occasional phone call and then feeding the dog, which was in a pen out near the old cement shelter. No problem as far as I was concerned. I'd been house sitting there many times before, so I knew how eerie things would feel after the evening come. Like I said, it just had that look of a haunted house. Not much happened that first night, and on the next day I got up, fed and watered the dog, and watched a few movies before taking a short walk around the property. That evening the phone rang, and it was Mr. Burns, and he wanted to know how much it rained the night before, and I knew he was out of state, so I told him it didn't rain at all, but he insisted I check his rain counter and measuring device that he had attached to a post near his mailbox. I went out, and sure enough, although it had been completely dry for the last few days, there was about a quarter inch of water in the bottom of the thing. I went back to the phone, and there he was waiting on the other line. And I told him he didn't seem surprised and said it would probably rain that night. He told me to take care and make sure to keep the doors locked and not to let anyone in when the evening came. I liked Mr. Burns, and he was a decent guy, but sometimes he talked like that, making very little sense at all. So I agreed to do as he said and hung up the phone, and about 3 hours later, evening crept up on the ranch, and with it came the first storm of the summer. This wasn't just a small shower. It was like a torrent. It came down heavy for about 30 minutes and then calmed to a steady downpour. And suddenly the phone started ringing, and I'd answer it, but no one would be on the other end of the line. And it rang like that all night, about 3 times an hour. And each time I picked up the receiver, it would be greeted with silence, no voice, no signals, nothing, just silence. As the rain came down, I looked out the window down towards the road that led back to town, and I saw a flicker of light through the nearby forest and went to stand on the front porch to get a better look. And sure enough, there was someone down there. And seemed the vehicle had just stopped just inside the forest at the low water bridge. Whoever it was had most likely been coming out to the ranch, so to make sure there was no trouble, I reluctantly slid into my bad weather clothes, went out to the shelter where I hung up the key, then made my way through the rain and mud down the road towards the light. The wind was howling and the rain was pouring down in sheets, but I could still see the light shining whenever I raised my head to see where I was going. I finally got to the curve that led into the woods and toward the low water bridge, but when I made the turn, there was nothing there. No, I was really freaked out. The bridge was flooded over, and there were no tire marks on either side of it, and I could clearly see that the other side of the bridge, and no one had been down it since well before the rain started. Probably not since I came down the day before. Well, I checked around a few more minutes just to make sure no one happened to be there, needing help, and then made my way back to the ranch. The phone was ringing again as I entered, but I didn't bother picking it up. This time I just let it ring. I had wet clothes to get out of and the weird lights to think about. I was warming up in the kitchen a few hours later when I heard a car horn go off. A steady drizzle was coming down, and looking out the window again, I noticed the lights near the bridge were back, this time dancing around through the trees before turning up the road and coming toward the house. It was a car, and every few seconds the driver would toot the horn a few times. Well, I got on my clothes and wrapped the still damp coat around me and went out the back door, and this time armed with a rifle. I could see nothing past the light of the porch, so went out into the storm carrying the rifle and a small flashlight. I went toward the barn and down the soggy driveway. The horn was still honking, but I could no longer see the road due to the tall brush in the fields, so the car was invisible to me, but getting louder and louder by the moment. Everything suddenly seemed to build up. The car horn got louder. I could now see the glare of the lights glowing through the brush. I found myself getting tense, pointing the now cocked rifle in the general direction of whoever was coming down the road. The horn rang out one more time, the light shined just a little brighter, and I finally got to the end of the drive and went out onto the road. And there was nothing there to greet me, just a dark, wet, stormy night and a muddy road that led to a very flooded bridge. Even the rain seemed to have been eased up a bit. After a few minutes of trying to figure this all out, I gave up, covering the rifle so as to keep the water off it, and I trudged back towards the house for the last time that night, deciding it was safer inside than out here in the open. Nothing much happened for the rest of the evening until about 4 a.m. when I was awakened by someone pounding on the front door. This is odd. Everyone always used the back door, and nonetheless, I got out of bed, put my clothes on, and went downstairs to find out what was going on. My body ached from being out in the storm the night before. I tried to hurry down the stairs and through the house as fast as possible, listening as the banging became more and more persistent. I had an idea that no one was going to be waiting for me on the porch when I opened the door, and I was right. Unable to sleep, I looked around a bit and then brewed a large, strong pot of coffee and sat reading until the sun picked up over the horizon. The day was bright, hot, and humid, and after a short nap, I decided to take a walk around the property, and I hung the keys back inside the shelter so as not to lose them, and as I did, I got a strong urge to go into the little room and explore a little bit. I have no idea why I would suddenly want to do this, since there was really nothing in there, and to be honest, it wasn't a place I wished to be in. Still, it took a little effort to walk away from the shelter. Something told me not to enter all the way, so I just stuck my hand in, quickly placed the keys behind this painting, and I then shut the heavy door. I took a long walk before going back to the low water bridge. I shut the barn door, which had come open during this previous evening's storm, and then made my way to the top of the hill behind the house. From there, I got a great view of everything for miles and miles, and I sat up there for a long time, and then went to the river. The bridge was still flooded, but not as bad as before, and there were no tire marks or evidence whatsoever of anyone being there before except what tracks I had made. I still had no idea what had happened the night before. I would have thought it was all a prank, but the storm was a bad one, and besides, the bridge had been out. I went back to the ranch, and the first thing I noticed was that the barn door was open again. Already on edge, I peered inside and then closed the door, placing a large rock in front of it. Later that afternoon, while working out a few songs on my guitar, I kept getting a very strong feeling of someone standing right behind me. No matter where I would sit, the feeling was always there, and growing tired of it, I stopped what I was doing and said aloud, "Stop it, I'm trying to do something here." No sooner had I said this than the feeling stopped. It came back whenever I would start to practice my music, but then went away when I told it to. The next day I was upstairs going through some things when I heard very loudly someone downstairs yell out, "Hey!" Well, it startled me at first, but then I thought it might be the family coming home early, so I put up what I was doing and went down to find an empty house. The rest of the time there alone was uneventful. With the exception of a lot of weird feelings, the library for some reason spooked me, as did the shelter, and I refused to use the spiral staircase located next to the baby room, and I was somewhat nervous the whole time and took many long walks, and once while sitting on the top of the hill, I saw a car coming towards the ranch. It passed through the forest. It made it over the bridge. I was actually a little relieved. Robert had finally showed up. Robert's grandmother had brought him back from the summer camp he had attended, and after we finally said our goodbyes, I sat on the porch with him, listened to the various stories he had to tell, and looking through the photos he'd brought back. I was reluctant to mention my own tales, but it didn't matter. Robert had grown up in that house. He knew something weird had happened to me while being alone there. We spent the next few days enjoying the good weather. We hiked and explored the valleys, the forest along the road. We went on drives that took us to places we'd never been to before. And one night, just before the sun was setting, Robert finally asked me how my stay had been. Well, I didn't hesitate in telling him some of the odd things that had happened, and he reaffirmed some of them with his own stories. It seems he too was drawn towards the cement shelter where the keys were hidden, and the only difference was that he had gone inside, the heavy door slamming shut, locking him in. And it was some time before he was able to push the thing open and get out. He said that the Virgin Mary statue had been moved, so it was facing that doorway, as if watching his struggle. Sorry about that. He was as confused as I concerning the lights at the bridge and the mystery car, but he did mention seeing a lady come down that spiral staircase, and I was so afraid of. She came down, glared at him for a moment, and then walked back up. Robert never found out who she was, but he felt that she was not nice. He also told me of dreams he had about the library. They were very vivid and scary and involved the closet. And he had just recently discovered that a relative had been born in that room years ago and had died there as well. Above each bedroom door was a small window, and Robert said one early morning he woke up and seeing the shadow of someone come down the hall and stand in front of his slightly open door. The person stood there for some time before Robert called out, thinking it was his dad, and when he finally got no reply, Robert screamed for his parents, and as they turned the corner into the hall, the shadow disappeared. That explains why I always felt watched whenever I tried to sleep in the guest room across the hall. And as for Robert's room, I only went in there to get a CD now and then, and I never felt comfortable in there ever since I saw someone looking out the window at me as I came up to the house that first day. Toward the end of my stay, Robert and I settled down one evening in the basement, and we had movies to watch. Oh, hello, 5 Hazel. Good to see you. We had movies to watch, and we were set for the night. And there was a small bathroom between the foyer and the kitchen, and in it was an old-fashioned toilet that had a string you pulled when you wanted to flush it. The thing was loud, and as we sat downstairs watching our second movie, we could hear it flushing. We inspected it before finally turning off the water and returning to our movies, and around 1 or 2 in the morning, that we were in the zombie state just before sleep actually comes, and suddenly we heard the back door slam shut. Wide awake now, we grabbed a few rifles that we had brought down into the basement with us and listened. From right above us, we heard an unmistakable sound of boots shuffling across the foyer floor. They slowly came towards the basement door and stopped. Then we heard the door creak open. I admit it, I finally came to understand the term shaking like a leaf, but Robert wasn't much braver. We were too scared to even try and pretend to be cool. For a moment there was nothing, and then whoever was above us came walking down the stairs, and we could hear someone brush against the coats that hung on the pegs on the wall, and we could hear the firm, deliberate sound of boots making contact with the warped boards that were the steps. The stairway going down in the basement was hidden behind a wall, so that anyone who came down could not be seen until they reached the bottom. The third stair from the bottom always made a horrible squeaking noise, and when we heard that, we raised our rifles and waited and watched. And finally, when no one came into view, I told whoever was there that we were armed and to leave. There was no sound at all, and eventually we gained a little courage and slowly peeked around the wall and up the stairway. No one was there, and the door was shut. I was beyond scared at this point, and after going throughout the house, checking the doors and windows, we spent the rest of the night in the dining room talking about what had happened, and to this day I am unsure what to think. We heard without a doubt the back door open and slam shut, but when we checked it, the key was still in the lock and the door was still bolted from the inside. Robert left the next day to go spend a few days at a friend's home. He wasn't surprised when I told him I was asking another friend of mine to come out and stay with me on the final night there. That night was quiet except for the usual strange feelings, and even my friend mentioned it and left early the next morning. Rather than spend another day there alone waiting for Mr. and Mrs. Burns to return, I wrote a note telling them that I had to leave early to run a few errands, placing it on the kitchen table. Packed up all my things, made sure the house was cleaned up, then locked the door, and a sudden sense of urgency overcame me as I walked to the shelter to put in the extra key. I came close to just tossing it into the room in my struggle to hurry, but I managed somehow to put it back in its proper place on the hook. As I walked to the car, I noticed the barn door was open again, and although I tried to ignore it, I ended up going over and shutting it. The big rock I had put in front of it earlier was gone. No one ever said anything about me leaving early or asking me how my stay was. Mrs. Burns would often laugh at the idea that her house could ever be haunted, but sometimes I think that laughter was a little bit forced. As for Mr. Burns, when I asked him how he knew it would rain that evening, I checked the level of water in his gauge, and he looked at me puzzled and swore he never called me during that trip. I still don't know what to make of that place. Like I said, lots of strange things happened in and around the small town I grew up in, and this was just one of them. Wow, that was an epic story. That was a lot longer than I was expecting, but I think it was a good story. I think. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm just checking the time, and it is that time. It was that kind of a story. It was kind of a half a show story, and that's okay, but it was a good story. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's episode of the Bedtime Stories from Beyond, but I guess that's going to wrap it up for me. I don't have much more for you guys, but other than to say thank you all to all of you who have come in and been a part of the show tonight. You guys are absolutely amazing. Please spread the word about the Paranormal Portal. Let people know why you keep coming back. Tell them how amazing it is. If you think it's amazing. If you think it sucked, just don't bother. Don't bother. But definitely check out our podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We release podcasts Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, wherever you find podcasts, whether that's iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, Pandora, etc., etc. But yeah, check it out. If you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes and give us a good review, because that definitely does a lot for iTunes. It kind of promotes our show. So if their algorithm picks up that we have a lot of good reviews, then of course their algorithm is going to recommend it to other people that might be into the paranormal. So it definitely does help out a lot if you guys do that. And if you like the Portal a bunch and want to sport some Portal gear, check the description below, and you'll see a link to our Teespring where you can definitely do a lot to help support the show that way. And thank you again for that donation. That was excellent. Very, very cool. I'm always humbled when that happens. And that was Beastly Bronco. That's amazing, brother. Thank you so much. It really does mean a ton. Wait, what? Thank you, Peter. What am I waiting for, Rick? He says, wait. Yeah, it is. What's going on, Rick? What am I waiting for? I once heard high screams near the Mineola Nature Preserve Park. Later to find Bigfoot show. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Wow, what Marilyn? Nothing, just messing around. Okay. Here I am waiting, like, what's going on? What am I missing? But yeah, it's always hard for me to close the shows, guys. I love doing the shows. And in fact, I would like to let everybody know on Halloween, we will be doing a Paranormal Portal-thon. So come over to the YouTube channel here. It's just going to be YouTube only, but I think, that's on a Thursday, isn't it? I checked it already. Yeah, no, it's a Thursday night. So yeah, we'll be right here on YouTube. We're not going to be broadcasting anywhere else. But if you were looking for something to do Halloween evening, looking for some good stories, maybe a few laughs, Don and I are going to do a Paranormal Portal-thon, and we're going to see just how long a Portal-thon is. We're not really sure. I'm not going to commit to anything because it's a dry run for us. We've never done something like this before, but we thought we would just get on and just keep going and going and going until we just can't go anymore. And that might be a 3-hour show. It might be a 6-hour show. I have no idea. So I know it's a work night, so it's going to preclude a lot of people being with us for long. But if you can spend part of that night with us, that'd be really cool. I don't know. I just want to see how long we can go. It should be a good time and a lot of fun. But if you're bored and looking for something to do, stop in and show us some of that love. So anyway, I guess that's going to wrap it up for me. I don't know. I hope you guys have a great day tomorrow. Tuesday is upon you. You made it through Monday, so I think every day it gets a little better until you hit Friday, and that's about as good as it gets. Saturday, of course, is better. Sunday, you're always thinking about Monday. So yeah, I guess Friday, Saturday is about the peak of the week. Maybe Friday at like 5 p.m., wherever you are. But anyway, guys, I love you a bunch. Thank you so much for all the kindness and support so many of you showed us. Thank you for all of you that are emailing. If you have a paranormal story of your very own that you'd like to share, please email us at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. I would love to share your story on the air and on the podcast or whatever. So that's always an option. But definitely check out Wednesday's show. That should be the Truckers Haunted Highway Tales from the Trails episode that we've been putting together. I just interviewed a gentleman from Australia who had a really up close and personal experience in his truck with a Yowie, which is their version of the Bigfoot. So that'll be on that episode as well. Great guy, and had a great discussion with him. And then we got some incredible submissions from a few other people. So definitely check that out. We'll get it up, and it'll be available actually early on Wednesday morning. I usually release them at midnight, so it's like 12:01 a.m. It should be live. So check it out, and definitely share those. Let people know about the Paranormal Portal podcast as well. It definitely means the world to us. So, all right, guys, love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. Love you guys, and sweet dreams.